Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. As part of this Season 4 update, we saw big changes to dungeons in Dragonflight, where we saw a big shift in dungeon difficulty as well as the rewards to make it easier for players to tackle more difficult 5-man content without having to dive deep into the M+ system. This means that new players can get better gear from entry-level heroic dungeons, competitive gear from base mythics, and even some of the very best gear from a new challenging version of Dawn of the Infinite Mega Dungeon. And recently I got to join a Dawn Hardmode run, and I was surprised with how good of gear rewards we were getting with every single boss. So I decided to go over Dawn of the Infinite Hardmode in today's video. And if you're looking to get some of the very best dungeon gear for Season 4 content, with some of the very best weapons, trinkets, and even unique items, and you enjoy the idea of progging difficult 5-man content, then I'm gonna go over what you can expect out of the Dawn of the Infinite Hardmode, so you can be better prepared at this mega dungeon experience. But right before that, most of you guys watching these kind of guide videos are still not subscribed. However, the more of you remind, the more of you do. So let's keep it going. Subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you're watching these videos anyway. Especially if you want to get more regular content regarding Dragonflight patch 10.26, 10.7, Season 4, or any of the future War Within updates. So the first things first, how do you even activate the hard mode of Dawn of the Infinite? Turns out all you have to do is talk to Nosdormo. For Season 4 now he has 2 dialogue options, one for the normal mythic version of this dungeon, as well as one for the hard mode version of this dungeon. While on hard mode, all boss abilities and damage is going to be adjusted to be a little bit higher difficulty, but also we're going to see an upgrade on all the rewards which have been adjusted to the hero track gear. Also remember, this functions like a Mythic 0 and not Mythic Plus, so be sure to loot every single one of the bosses that you slay, because every one of them could have an upgrade for your character. Starting off, we have the Chronocar, which for the most part is basically exactly the same fight, with just every mechanic hitting a little bit harder. However, the boss will do 3 leaps instead of 2 in the hard mode, so make sure that your group is adjusted for those leaps. The Tank Buster mechanic, however, is going to be notably harder hitting than before, so try to communicate your cooldowns between the tank and the healer to deal with this mechanic effectively. The next boss is Manifested Time Waves. During this encounter, you'll see 4 rotating quadrants that will constantly spin around the boss. 2 dark quadrants will slow down time, reducing players' damage taken. You'll want to try to spend most of this encounter inside of these quadrants. And then there will be 2 light quadrants that speed up time, increasing players' movement speed. The slowdown and the speed up mechanics have unique interactions with every single one of boss's abilities, and you'll want to utilize these quadrants to deal with them effectively. At the beginning, the boss is going to spawn orbs that fly outwards from his location. You want to avoid these by going towards the right so you never get hit by an orb. These orbs will also move quicker or slower depending on their quadrant. Chronofaded will be a debuff that will happen after the orb mechanic. Chronofaded is a debuff that can be dispelled by a healer, and this debuff needs to be dispelled inside of a lighter quadrant so that the halo that happens from the dispel effect passes by the group quickly. If it is dispelled in darker quadrant, then the halo will expand slowly, making the fight plenty more painful by giving your group an extra obstacle to overcome. During the dispel, the tank is going to have to deal with the boss frontal attack, which normally doesn't appear on other difficulties of this fight, but is present in the hard mode difficulty. If the tank is standing in the lighter quadrants, then this frontal attack happens almost instantly, which will definitely kill the tank. But if the tank stands in the darker quadrants, the second frontal will be notably delayed, giving the tank enough time to dodge it. For the most part, you want to try to keep the entire party inside of darker quadrants throughout this encounter. But the tank should always be on the opposite side from the rest of the team, just to make sure that the frontal never clips any of your party members. For the next boss, we have Blight of Galakrond, which is exactly the same fight as normal, just everything in this encounter hits a little bit harder. I don't necessarily have any new tips to offer how to deal with this mechanic, since it is exactly the same fight, just everything hurts more. For the most part, what you can do to mitigate some damage is to try to have the tank spend as much time holding the Corruption Orb, since that will have a lot more health and better defenses to deal with that passive ticking damage. But also don't forget to bounce the orb amongst other group members to not let the corrosion mind control the tank. Then we have Eridicron, which is exactly the same fight as normal. Everything is just going to be a little bit more painful. There is one slightest adjustment in the hard mode difficulty of this fight, as when the boss does his frontal breath attack, a lot more players are going to be marked with the pulverizing creations spawn, though they're fairly easy to take care of since the creations aren't any stronger in this difficulty. You just gotta find a way to either interrupt their cast or use some kind of an AoE disruption like a Demon Hunter's Chaos Nova or a Fire Mage's Fire Breath, and if everybody is stacked together or at least goes in the same direction to dodge the breath, then all the adds are going to spawn together, making crowd controlling them much easier. Next, we have Tyr, the Infinite Timekeeper, and like the Retocron, this fight is for the most part the same as normal, though you will want to make sure that everybody is soaking Dividing Strike, since this ability is going to do a hefty bit more damage, even if you are the player affected by Spark of Tyr. You may also want to coordinate defensives or externals for Sparks of Tyr, as the healer can only dispel one player at a time with the Spark, and you're really gonna need everybody soaked for Dividing Strike, otherwise you may lose somebody in the group. But for the most part, try to keep everybody stacked together near the tank to limit the amount of room that the boss is going to corrupt with some of these conal and frontal abilities. As for Morchi, everything about this fight is basically the same as before, though every mechanic is going to be notably harder hitting. If you can utilize any type of group AoE crowd control on the familiar faces, then you definitely should employ it, as it will help reduce a ton of damage for your party, especially if you don't have to utilize time traps to freeze your familiars, as the time traps do a ton of damage. At the very least, if you can stagger any of these familiar faces with single target crowd controls like a Hunter Freezing Trap or a Demon Hunter Imprison, then you should do so to control these adds separately. You should try also to spawn familiars in the center of the boss platform if you can apply any crowd controls to them, and then once they spawn, shift the entire group towards the edge of the platform to make sure the familiars don't take damage to break him out of CC. Next, we have the Time Lost Battlefield, which is exactly the same fight as before, just certain aspects of this fight are going to be a little bit more deadly, like the adds that get spawned in by either of the champion or the alliance or the horde that you're facing, depending on your instance. You want to make sure to interrupt the caster add immediately, be it the horde warlock or the alliance conjurer, as their single target abilities will do a hefty bit of damage to whoever they target. You also want to make sure you have a stun lock available for either the Horde Axe Thrower or the Alliance Archer, whichever is the range character that you end up getting, to prevent them from applying the serrated bleed to any of your party members. In hard mode, this bleed puts a ton of pressure on your healer during this encounter, and they already have a lot of healing to deal with as it is. Also, try to position your whole entire group towards the edge of the boss platform so that the boss's frontal cleave doesn't cleave into the battle happening at the center of the boss arena to reduce some group-wide damage. Finally, we have Chronolord Dios, which is basically the same fight as before, but out of everything so far in Dawn of the Infinite, this one is going to hit the hardest. This boss is definitely a gear check, so if you are undergeared, you may not even be able to pass past this encounter, as there's just a ton of output going on, and you have to do some very careful management of cooldowns in order to get out of this fight if you're undergeared. But to make this encounter a little bit easier, the boss is going to spawn 2 infinity orbs, usually targeting your healers or ranged characters. You should probably assign somebody to hold the orb as long as possible, while everybody else moves out of the way, so you can have one orb drop, so you can stagger the second orb until the Infinity Nova debuff fades away. The boss is also going to periodically summon infinite keepers, and this should always be your highest priority target no matter the situation, and you want to try to take them down as fast as possible. Defeating a keeper takes off 20% off of the boss's health. You can cleave the boss, but always make sure you're focusing down on the keeper at all times. Keepers will also periodically apply a Chronal Burn on any member of your party, which needs to be dispelled instantly by the healer, otherwise it does a ton of rotting damage very quickly. The first 2 keepers will spawn one after another, but the final pair will spawn together. During that time, you'll want to make sure everybody is nuking down one of these keepers as fast as possible to mitigate some group-wide damage. As for tanks, you should always try to tank the main boss near a wall to make sure his frontal cone breath ability doesn't hit the rest of your party. You also want to rotate externals or cooldowns for every one of these breaths, as it's going to do a lot more damage in hard mode difficulty. Also, as a tank, you should try to cleave down keepers when you can to keep some of the aggro on them. While keepers won't directly focus down the tank, they'll be less likely to attack your allies, which will reduce some group-wide damage in the process. When the boss reaches 20% health, or rather after you defeated all of the keepers, the fight is going to move into phase 2, where all of the boss's base mechanics, like the frontal breath and the infinity orbs, are still going to be part of the encounter. Though periodically the boss is going to be doing a ton of group-wide damage while leaving temporal scars on the ground. When this happens, you want to make sure to move as the party around the edge of the boss arena, making sure to adjust the boss so he isn't cleaving the rest of your group. And that's essentially going to be the entire guide on how to complete the Dawn of the Infinite hard mode dungeon to get some of the best dungeon gear available in Season 4. I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching this video, and hope all of you enjoyed this guide. Let me know if you're going to be diving into the Dawn of the Infinite hard mode difficulty in the comments down below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.